our thoughts and letting go of all the feelings from our day. Elevating our thoughts to Jesus and asking God, our loving Father, to bless us by protecting the environment of our home, by preparing our hearts, opening our minds, so we can receive the teachings that we are about to be discussing during this night of study. Um, but let's just start by saying this is actually one of the questions, that Kardec brings to us in the book is, how if man can know about the beginning of things, this was always something, a curiosity that we had as human beings. And when I say we had, that don't only mean us, when we look back to, I don't know, ancient civilizations, they also had their own concept of what was God and the creation of things and all of that, even though, they were not as advanced or, sophisticated in the way that they comprehend God as we do nowadays. This was something that was always inherent to humans in general. And it's important for us, right? To be curious, and because this curiosity is what drives us to evolve and progress, right? But what the Spirit said is that, although, um, yes, we are curious and we can understand some things of the beginning of, the creation and God, there are some limits, right? But why? What is the necessity of having these limits? It's just because, God said that we cannot know things, we cannot, have the full knowledge of things. Actually, no. The limits are, as the slide says, the limits are imposed by the necessity to develop in oneself faculties that one does not yet possess. I'm not sure if you guys remember, it was some classes ago, I believe I was talking about reincarnation. And I gave an example that is very, the example is also good for this, right? The example was, if, a 3 or 4-year-old son of yours would approach you and ask about how babies are made, if you feel that you would be able to describe the whole process. And when I talk, talking openly about the process in which babies are conceived, I ask you to just put the idea of, if you would be comfortable discussing the matter or not aside, but let's just try to think if a small child would be able to conceive the whole understanding on how babies are made, right? Definitely not. And so it's the same thing in here. The idea that we don't know the full extent of like how creation happened and how the universe, how many other planets and galaxies are in the universe, it's not because God doesn't want us or these spirits do not want us to know. It's because we are not quite there yet, right? We are not, we still need to develop ourselves. Our intelligence is still limited. But as we progress, the bottom part of the slide says, the veil will be lifted as we become more purified. So as we progress, and the purified in here is not only in the sense of becoming better souls, it's also in the sense of, because the morals and the intelligence, they go together. So the evolution that we are talking in here is that, the more we will progress in the spiritual scale, the more evolved we are going to be. We are not going to advance only morally, but we will also advance intellectually. And so, one of the ways that we have as humans to understand more about, how creation happened and to understand, things of our daily lives is science, right? In the spirits, they do talk about science in this chapter of the Spiritist book. They say that science is an instrument that was given to man by God for the advance of humanity. And so basically, science and religion, they are two igniters of intelligence. One discovers the law of the material world, the other also cover laws of the moral world, right? And the good spirits, we are going to talk about this, how the spirits, they also bring knowledge to us all the time. So in this sense, science and religion, they are also interconnected a little bit. And, to the point that let's think about some of the discoveries that science made, Every time that a scientist decided to explore something, the scientist first had an idea, right, that they call the hypothesis. And so this hypothesis is basically like the scientist, by studying or by encountering an issue in his daily life, he had this idea, I think I want to study how this works, or I might have an idea of how this works, and let me try by experiments to prove it. And so it's very interesting to me. When I was studying, I thought that this was very interesting, that understanding that some of these ideas that the scientists have, they can come, this hypothesis, they can come from, as I said, things that they are experiencing in their daily lives, previous studies, their experiences in life. But also, some of those ideas and some of those hypotheses can also come from elevated spirits, giving them, some intuition. And this is so fascinating. This is a part about science and revelations. And I did take the time. If you guys actually put the name of these three gentlemen on Google, you will see what I'm talking about. So basically, these three scientists from different times, different eras of our evolution on Earth, they all made important scientific discoveries, and all those discoveries were driven by a dream or some sort of intuition that they had. So let's talk a little bit about them so you guys can understand the fascinating stories. So first of all, this person in here, let me put the cursor, Kekuli, I'm not sure if this is the right pronunciation. So he was a scientist. He discovered the molecule, the shape of the molecule of the benzene. That was like a huge. He did not discover the compound was discovered prior to him, but they didn't really know how to use that compound. And because they didn't know what was the structure of it, they didn't really know how to apply it, right? So he basically one night he had a dream. He had a dream about a ring. He said that the dream was like snakes. They were like biting their own tails, forming this ring. So when he woke up in the morning, I actually, by googling it, I found some transcriptions of his diaries in which he was talking that how he woke up and he thought, this is a good idea. Let me go to study more and see if I can prove that. And so with this discovery of his, he is considered, one of the founding fathers of, inorganic chemistry nowadays. Another one, Giordano Bruno, he in his case, he had a dream about the universe. He dreamed that he was seeing the universe, that he was like he was walking, and then he crossed this veil, and he was able to to start seeing first Earth and then the universe in general. So in his dream, he saw that different than what they would think in the time in which he was living. It wasn't the sun that was like orbiting around Earth, but the contrary, right? He clearly saw in his dream that it was the Earth that was, moving around the sun. Understanding that then the sun was the center of our universe. But more than that, in this dream, he also saw different galaxies and more than one sun, different stars. And so he tried, to bring this to public knowledge, and it wasn't really a good thing, because at that time, the church would very much like, the idea that Earth was the center of the universe, and he ended up, dying because of these ideas of him. But it's also another interesting example of how the spirits, the spiritual world can give us intuition about, science and discoveries here. And finally, the last scientist in the slide, Frederick Banting, he was the person who found a cure for diabetes. He understood how to use insulin to treat diabetes. His mother passed away because of this disease, because of diabetes. And then he dedicated himself to study more about the disease. And then finally one night he went to bed, and he had a dream about it. He woke up very similar to the other one. He went to the lab with this hypothesis in his mind, and he kept doing experiments until he was able to find a cure. So this is a very interesting thing for us, right? Towards the end of the class, we are going to talk more about, this intuition, and ways that we can open ourselves, and because if these spirits are here to help us, in order for us also to receive their help, we need to be willing to receive their help. We need to be open, to receive their help. But this, I just thought it was, as I was studying to be here tonight and presenting to you all, I thought it was that those were very fascinating stories about, the connection of science, religion, and how the spirits, they can also help us in our progress, because those are ways in which the spiritual world, they are helping humankind to progress. And in the spiritual literature, we see several times these spirits talking about, how from time to time, not only a more elevated spirit comes to earth and incarnates with us to help us with progress, but also how some spiritual mentors from that are discarnated, they come and they also help people with research. And and here we are focusing a little bit more in science, but in the same way that it happens with science, it also happens in other areas of our life as well. But then, okay, now we talk a bit about if men can know about the origin of the universe, and understanding more about God and how we were formed. We talk the role that science and also the role that spirituality has on all of that. And so now we can talk a little bit about the universal Trinity, right? So basically, the concept that was brought in the Spiritist book is that there are two general elements in the universe. One was the intelligent principle, and the other was the material principle. And above all of this, there is God. God is the one that is integrating what both those principles are doing, and he was the one that created those principles and everything else. Okay? So basically, what is the intelligent principle, or spirit, as this slide says? So the intelligent principle organizes matter by, I'm sorry, I translated something in here. So if I pause a little bit, it's because I'm doing direct translation right now. So the intelligent principle organizes matter by acting on primitive energy, which is the fluid. We are going to talk a little bit about the universal fluid. And he animates it in the various form of plant and animal life. So this intelligent principle, as I said, it is what undergoes the transformation and becomes the spirit later on. The spirits are, by their creation, they are simple and ignorant, right? This is how God creates us. And then as we grow, we were talking just a couple of slides ago, how we are not quite yet prepared to learn about the universal truth. But we were created as simple and ignorant, and then we have progressed until the stage that we are right now, and hopefully one day we will reach the condition of pure spirits. So basically that's it. The spirit is what animates, is the intelligence principle, and the material is what can help and can organize the energy, and the spirit can help the spirit to live in certain worlds, like the world in which we are living in here. And I know that this might sound a little bit confusing. We are going to explore more about the intelligent principle and the material principle. We are going to talk about them separately. So here it is. So the intelligent principle or spirit, and I want you guys to pay attention how the spirit has, it's not in capital, right? And Kardec did have this very differentiation in the book. So basically, the concept of spirit in here as part of the universal trinity, this concept of spirit would be the intelligent principle of the universe. It's the innermost nature, right? And the spirits actually told us that for them, it was very difficult to explain. They said it is not easy to explain in your language. So basically, we can say that it's in the intelligent principle, or we could also say that it's consciousness. But it's something that animates, all of us. So what is the difference between what when Kardec was writing spirit with a capital and when he was writing spirit not in capital in the Spiritist book? Basically, when he was using this one in here, not in capital, not in caption, he was saying that there was the intelligent principle that is inherent for everyone, right? That is like a spirit in the purest form. When he was using a spirit in capital, he was trying to say that it was like an individualization then, So basically he's talking about spirits in general, right? This spirit that is the force of so many different beings in the universe, this force, this intelligence, this consciousness that can make us, rational beings, that can help us to think, that can help us to, understand the difference between right and wrong. And therefore, when he was trying to talk about spirits in particular, like each spirit, like we are always spirits. So when he was trying, to individualize spirits, then he was using the capital wording. I know it's complicated. Maybe he should have just used, the intelligent principle, or he should have used consciousness. It might have been more clear for us. But, it's also interesting, as Kardec was a scientist, he was someone that was trying to organize everything, in the book in such a comprehensive way. It's interesting for us to, to make this distinction as well. And also, so in the bottom of this slide, you will see Leon Denis, for those who don't know, is it's the real name of Kardec. Allan Kardec was a different name in which he was writing. So he wrote this, that in the plants, intelligence is dormant. In animals, it dreams, and in man only, it awakens, recognizes itself, and becomes conscious. So it means that it's not that having this spirit, this spark inside of us, this consciousness, it's not something that only happens in the humans only. This is something that is present throughout the creation of God, but it's just that parts of this creation, for parts of this creation, this spirit, this intelligence, this consciousness, it's still dormant, or it's in an early stage of development. Okay. Also, so many spiritualists and people that study this, they say that this intelligence, or as I said, consciousness, to avoid word or using the word spirit more and more times. So it will, as we progress from things of like mineral, plants, animals, this will be developing. This will becoming more elaborate. It will be, I was reading, they said in various degrees, is slowly. We are not talking about years, we are talking probably about centuries or even millennia, right? But this is something that we need to stop and just be thankful and grateful to God, because it's so beautiful the way that He created us, the way that He, that all creation works. And it's also an invitation for us. We're going to talk more about this towards the end of this lesson, for us to be kind, to all parts of creation, to plants, to animals, being kind to nature, because we are all connected. They might be in a different stage of, their evolution than we are, but, maybe millennia and millennia ago, we were in their place, and so we are all part of this creation, and we should, when we talk about loving one another, we should also think about, spreading the love to the rest of God's creation. So now you might be a little confused. I was talking spirit with capitals and not capitals, and it's like, Andy, but what is the difference of that in the perispirit, in us? I am just confused. So basically, we are a spirit. I think that this image is very is helpful, because we can almost think that the spirit is like, it's this sparkle, is this force that we all have inside of us. But then for this spirit to connect with a body, which is full matter, the spirit needs something to help this connection to happen, right? And the perispirit is it. So for many of us, sometimes when we think spirits, when we think about, for those who are mediums and can really see spirits, we might think that the spirit is actually what here in this slide we are calling the perispirit. Basically, the perispirit is a replica of our body in here, but it's more subtle, right? So some call the perispirit as actually a bridge. So it's a bridge between the spirit, which is totally immaterial, as I said. We could define as a sparkle, but I'm pretty sure that this definition that I am telling you is not 100% correct, but by what the spirits would say. But the perispirit is, as I said, this bridge. It connects. It's like an envelope, right? That is covering our spiritual part. And in fact, when we discarnate and when we go to the spiritual colonies, we keep the perispirit. So when we are talking here today about matter and spirituality, it doesn't, it's not necessarily that this matter is something that only happens on Earth. The more we progress different planets, and even, these first layers of the spiritual world, as I was talking, for example, the colonies, they still have a little bit of matter over there. As I said, we keep our perispirit, which is not as material as our body, but it's still, a little bit material. It's the bridge, right? So, any questions so far? I'm going to start covering a little bit more about the spirit and the intelligence. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions, but it might be the case that towards the end of the class, some of the questions will be answered. So far, we learned that God created the intelligent principle and the material principle, and that the intelligent principle is also called a spirit, but it's more like an essence, right? That all of us have, not spirits in particular, as we were seeing. And so it's interesting that the spirits, they gave us this um, this name of intelligent principle, because we might, in our limited way of conceiving things, just think, okay, so then if spirit is the intelligent principle, so it means that my spirit is my intelligence, right? And the spirit said, no, not really. The intelligence is a synonym of the spirit. It's an attribute, it's part of it. But it's not everything that a spirit is. Uh, Here you will also see some of other attributes that a spirit has. So what is in a spirit? Is a compound. It's the part that will trigger our intelligence, our reasoning, our will, our self-consciousness, our self-control, the logic, the perception, our sensitivity, and so many more things. The way that we love, all of that. So I know that this sounds a little bit confusing, and I am sure that, in the 1850 something, when the Spiritist book was being written, this was the language that was available to them, to Kardec. They use intelligence as a way of explaining, but I just want to make sure that to you guys, uh, we are not going to go home tonight just thinking that, okay, my intelligence is my spirit, and that it's as simple as that. No, the intelligence is part of it. But we all know, right? We have been here so many times. We have been studying spiritism for so long. So we do understand and comprehend that our spirit goes further than just our intelligence. It encompasses our character, uh, as I mentioned, sensitivity, and all of that. And so basically, some of the attributes that I was talking about, it comes from a book that is called Base do Racionalismo Cristão. I don't think that this book is translated, but it's a book available in Portuguese if someone wants to read. So now let's talk a little bit about matter, right? And this is quite fascinating to think. That, since the Spiritist book was written, how much science has evolved, and how also our the view that we as humans have of matter has changed as well. So, in the past, and even nowadays, some people might think that matter, when we are talking about matter or materia in Portuguese, we are talking about everything that we can touch, right? Anything that is around us and that we can touch. And these spirits, their definition to us, they said that matter is the ties that enchains the spirit. It is the instrument that the spirits use, upon which it simultaneously exerts its action. And they do say something that I want you guys to pay attention. It says, it may be so ethereal and subtle that your senses cannot detect it, and you won't perceive as matter. And so probably for someone that was reading this in the 1800s, the person would be like, I don't really understand. But current science, we have quantum physics, we have the theory of relativity, and, they study all, the different states of matter, condensation, energy, vibrations of things. So matter is much more than we can perceive. We still have a way to go, science wise, and also spiritually, to learn more. Because, if you ask a scientist nowadays what is a black hole, they don't know what to tell you. They know that it exists, they are studying more, but they still need to So, to study, discover, and in the same way, we will progress, as I said in the beginning of this class, our spiritual and our intellectual progress, they will go hand in hand, they will go together. Now, one of the things that I want to highlight, and I have talked a bit about this already, is how sometimes we have this tendency of thinking that everything that is material, that everything that is related to matter is negative, and not necessarily, right? I was talking just before how the spiritual world that we know, the parts that we know through the spiritual literal to the books and the literacy. For instance, Nosular and so many other colonies, they still are formed by matter. It's a more subtle matter than what we have in here, but they still need it. And also, when we talked about the perispirit, the perispirit is a form of matter. So it is necessary. We shouldn't see matter as something that is, bad for us or anything, because so let me give you one example that when I was studying, I read this example and I was like, wow, this makes total sense. Our spirit is so powerful that, for the stage in which we encounter ourselves nowadays, is almost that we need this heavy body to contain us a little bit. Because the thing is, we still have our bad days, we still have our bad tempers and, our emotional crises and some angry outbursts. So can you believe if it would be that easy for us to just unleash all of that in the world, right? This matter, this body, it's important because we still did not learn how to control our feelings. We still did not learn how to evolve morally, right? So it's not this idea that we don't know the extent of things because God doesn't want us to know, or that we are trapped in here in this material world because this is the way that it is. There is an explanation, right? It's almost as if our body in this world in which we are incarnated is our controlled testing environment, right? An environment in which we are learning how to deal with our feelings. We are learning how to improve. As I said, it's a testing environment. And I thought that was fascinating because I had never thought about it. We talk so much about how we have this extreme power inside of us, how we don't use even like 2% of our capabilities because our spirit is so powerful, but we never stop to think, why is that, right? And I'm not sure about you guys, but I really enjoy when I can make sense of things. um, and and now it makes sense, right? It makes sense that it's not because God wants us to be this way. It's because we are not yet prepared. And in certain things, remember the story from a couple weeks ago about the shot. Certain things happen in the way that they happen because it's necessary to us. Uh, and and if we rebel against the way that things are, it's because we don't have the whole overview. We don't have the whole vision of where we are in regards of our spiritual progress, in regards to what we have done before and what is reserved for us in our future. So that's why Spiritism is so great and Spiritism is so fascinating. And I hope you guys are enjoying this class because I know it's a little dry. I know it's a lot of concepts, but again, those concepts are important for us. I think it's important for us also to understand the purpose, when we talk about God being so good and being, the main intelligence of the universe, about God being the creator. It's also important when we start actually paying attention to all the details, is when we put together what we are seeing, what we are studying, and what we are feeling, right? And so, okay, I talked about the spirit, I talked about the matter, and now let's talk about the universal fluid. Basically, the universal fluid is an elementary or primitive matter that gives origin to so many things around us, to pretty much all beings on Earth, but not also on Earth, also things in the universe. This fluid has special properties and it produces innumerable combinations, as I mentioned. Some of the electric and magnetic fluids, are modifications of this fluid. And so it's also nice for us to think about electric and magnetic fluids and fields, because it kind of gives us a remote idea of what would be the universal fluid. But basically, why is it necessary? Because, when we talked about the universal trinity, when we talked about God, the spirit, and matter, spirit and matter, they are so different, right? They are so distant one from each other. And the universal fluid is what the spirit uses so he can exert an effect on matter, right? And in fact, it's so fascinating because science has already started to prove a little bit about the existence of this universal fluid. So, and forgive me because I have some descriptions in here, so I'm going to read. So the field is called Higgs field, and it's a field of energy that is thought to exist in every region of the universe. The field is accompanied by a fundamental particle known as Higgs boson, which the scientists called this particle Higgs boson as they gave this nickname as God's particle. So basically, they say that this God's particle was basically like the principle of everything. This is basically scientists, they were studying, atoms and electrons and all of that, and they were going, further and further until they discovered this one particle in here. So again, it's so fascinating to see the things that we are studying, from a religious standpoint, are also, already being confirmed by science. So hopefully, as the future comes, as we are moving towards a planet of a regenerative planet instead of a planet of trials and expiations, this will become more and more common for us, right? So here's to just exemplify a little bit. So the primitive matter, which would be the universal fluid, it suffers transformation and modification along with all the chemical elements, and then a variety of beings in nature are formed. So basically, this is how these spirits, they talk about creation and how, from the minerals to us, how everything was created around us. But now you might tell me, okay, Andy, this was a little dry. You talk so much about concepts and all of this. And so what can we do? What can we do now, right? Because this is the purpose of our meetings in here every Tuesday. We are supposed to learn things that will help us to progress. So what can we do? First of all, we need to take care of our development as spirits by we need to take care of our physical bodies. The physical bodies, as we learned tonight, not everything that is material is bad. This body that God has given us is a vehicle for our existence. We know that there is a purpose, right? And if this was something that God gave to us, we need to take care of it, right? We don't need to be crazy about, again, balance is important. Any extreme is usually harmful, but like having a healthy lifestyle, eating well, doing some exercise, taking care of your stress, all of that is important. But also taking care of your spirit. And when I say taking care about our spirit with everything that we learned tonight, it's not only, learning how to be a better person and working on your self-enlightenment. That, yes, 100% is the thing that we as spiritists is what we are talking in here every single Tuesday. But also, learning how to love, and most importantly, we talk so much in this lesson about science, right? How science and it is important, and how not only our moral progress is important, but also our intellectual. All of that will go hand in hand. So especially nowadays, that all the time that we have, sometimes we are like social media, right? Instagram and Facebook. How about we also take some time to read a book in different subjects? It could be a spiritist book. It could just be an interesting topic that will, help you to spend your time. So let's think about that. Let's think about how we can develop ourselves, both spiritually, physically, and also intellectually. Second lesson from today, the intuition. As we saw in the beginning of the class, the examples of different scientists that have received the intuition from the spiritual world. But in order for us to receive intuition, we have to do our part. Trusting is important, as this slide says. Trusting in your intuition is like learning how to ride a bike. Everything takes practice before it becomes second nature. But, how are we supposed to expect to be receiving intuition if we are not living the white space in our life? If all that we do in the busy lives that we have is like move from one task to the other. So we wake up in a rush, we have breakfast in 5 minutes, we drive to work with loud music or listening to a podcast, which is great. But here we are talking about making space. Then you work the whole day, you drive back home listening to something else, come home, time to cook, and then TV, and then time to go to bed. If you didn't have 5 minutes of being, it could be meditation is great, but for some people, meditation is still hard. It's just like 5 minutes of silence with yourself can already be a good thing. Or how about if you were driving, try to be in silence, or to listen to a music that will make you feel in peace, because the feeling of peace is an amazing thing that will help us to connect with good mentors, right? Another important part for us when we are talking about intuition, I just talked about how music can help us with that. But just like music, anything that help us to put ourselves in a good vibration. How are we, if we wanted to receive good intuition, but we are in not so great vibration, how do we expect that to happen, right? Asking for help from our mentors is very important. It's not every time that they can be around us, but if we ask for help, if we are giving permissions, we are opening up, then yes, they can come and they can help. And finally, trust our intuition, because it doesn't help if you are receiving all these intuitions, but then you are guessing. You are like having second thoughts about every single thing, right? So here the message is also, the spirits are here to help. They are here to give us our intuition, to motivate us sometimes. They're almost like they're cheering for us, pick this, do this. But we also have our free will, right? So it depends on us to accept all of that and to listen. And finally, you might tell me, Andy, but is everything intuition? And I saw a post in social media a couple of days ago. I shared this with Rafael. It was so fascinating that he was talking. What is the difference about intuition and paranoia? So basically, because we do know that in the same way that we have good spirits around us, we have spirits that are not as elevated. And they might also be trying to give us, to suggest some thoughts for us. So we know that it's a good thought. We know that it's an intuition and it's coming from elevated spirits every time that this is, something that is good, that is going to help us, that is going to help others. But every time that the thoughts that we are having are thoughts that are not good, are thoughts that are like not good on us, judgmental thoughts on other, then that is not intuition. So it's also important for us, to understand the difference between one and the other. And then finally, the final message from tonight's class, and this is the final slide. I couldn't really find the author of this message, but I translated from Portuguese to English, and I thought it was so beautiful. It says, the formation of the planet Earth, as well as the beings that inhabited it, are the same. So as we study, everything comes from the universal fluid. So deep down, if we go to like the level of particles, we are all the same. So the only thing that is different is the needs and autonomy for well-being. So, when we are comparing us with animals and other beings in this planet. Our evolutionary condition, that is, in the kingdom of nature to which we belong, will show our organic differences, and at no moment our moral differences. And by moral differences in here, I am not talking about the evolution spirits. It's just like to the sense of, I'm not better. It's not because we are intellectually more capable than the plants and the animals, we are not better than them, right? So what makes us different from irrational animals is our reason and our free will. The same calcium that makes up the organic matter of animals also makes up ours. The same blood compound that runs the veins of different ethnic groups. So I thought that this was a wonderful message, especially, for the days in which we live and we see so much hate out there. We see people fighting because ethnic differences, racial differences, because the way that people love, because the way that people decide to live their lives. We see people that mistreat animals, we see people that mistreat other beings. And if there is one thing that I want you to take from this class, aside of the whole, complicated definition of what is a spirit and what is matter and science and atoms and particles of God, forget about all of that and let's focus on this. Let's focus that we are all creations of God, of a loving Father, right? We all came from the same matter, from the same fluid. Therefore, I am not better than you. I am not better than my neighbor. I'm not better than this animal. I'm not better than the minerals, right? We are the same, and we should respect each other. We should love each other for that. And so I thank you very much. I am so sorry if I sounded a little confused at any point in this lesson. I thank you for being here. If you have any questions, I welcome the questions right now. Otherwise, I would ask you to grab a jar of water so we can prepare for the passes. Yay, Kara! Thank you. So Kara said that this was a great lecture. I especially love the explanation of why we have this dense physical body, because we are so powerful and haven't figured out how to manage ourselves yet, in the importance of the spirit and matter. Yes, yes, Kara. All right, so if you guys are all ready for it, let's go ahead, and I think I have another chat. Yes, thank you, Anna. So since we are talking so much today about the spirits and matter and energy and all of that, the passes are also, a way in which these spirits are sending energies to us. The spirits can energize us, can help us, also with illnesses, some problems of the soul as well. And I am sure you all are familiar with it, but it also goes very well with the class that we had today. Okay, it's right in here.
Let's prepare ourselves now for the moment of the pass. Let's prepare ourselves now for the moment of the passes and the blessing of our water. Place by your side a container with clean water to be blessed and magnetized. Dear brothers and sisters, no matter where you are in this moment, what difficulties you're facing, Jesus is always ready to come to our help. Place yourself now in a comfortable position, one that facilitates concentration and receptivity. Breathe slowly and calmly. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Fill your lungs with air and release slowly. Let the energy of tranquility and peace penetrate your lungs and circulate throughout your body. Your soul, in harmony with your body, feels peaceful and at peace. Let us think now about the passage of Jesus among us. In a beautiful and clear day, the golden rays of the sun illuminating the joyful landscape. Multicolored flowers, bouncing, chirping birds fill the landscape with optimism. The news of the cures brought a crowd of needy people around Jesus. Suddenly, Jesus appears, calm and serene. His white tunic is light and long all the way up to his feet. At the sunset, all those who were sick and affected by different diseases were brought to him, and Jesus, laying his hand on each one, healed them, as narrated in the Gospel of Luke. Let's mentalize now Jesus approaching us in this moment, placing his friendly hands on top of your head. Feel the presence of this Divine Master right with you, feeling like a waterfall of pure and crystalline waters, start to fall from His hands, coming from His love to bathe you, falling on your head, streaming down your shoulders, bathing your whole entire being, bringing you peace, serenity, and balance, cleaning all impurities and pacifying yourself. Feel these waters bathing you, cleansing and purifying. Breathe. Now think of Jesus as a sun right before you, His light, His warmth, embracing you, enveloping you. Feel the healing emerging, emanating from Christ towards you. He hears your prayers. Trust Him. His love is infinite. He is always by your side, protecting, offering everything you need. Trust Him. Feel and absorb all these magnificent healing energies coming from Jesus in this moment. His light surrounds and embraces you. Feel these energies running throughout your body. Feel yourself re energized, strengthened, and at peace. Dear Lord Jesus, our divine friend, extend your generous hands, Lord, and transform these waters into remedies for our physical and spiritual ailments. Hold us, Jesus, in your peace. Extend your vibrations of love for the benefit of my home, dear Lord. May peace, health, tranquility reign here with my family. We give thanks to you, Jesus, and pray that you stay with us today and always. Thank you, God.
So let's now close our night with a final prayer. Dear God, we thank you for this opportunity of being here, learning more about your work with creation. But we thank you most of anything else, most importantly than anything else, we thank you for your love and for you to have created not only us, but all the beauty that we see surrounding us, the nature, the animals, all the beings of creation. And we ask your mercy and your forgiveness if we are still too small to sometimes comprehend your work and to love our fellow beings. We ask that our mentors may help us in this journey, may help us to work in our spiritual growth by teaching us to love, not only loving our family members or those who do good to us, but loving everyone, understanding that we are all equal, we are all your sons, we are all part of your creation, and therefore we should never consider that we are better than anyone else. We ask you to bless all those who suffer, incarnated and discarnated, to bless those who are sick in the hospital, to bless those who still have their hearts too closed for your love, for those who still don't know how to love or express love. We ask that you and the good spirits may be merciful and help those souls so they can also progress, so they can also learn how good it feels to be loved, how good it is to do good to others. Finally, we ask you to bless this group, to bless every single one of our homes, our family members. So we may go in peace, we may have a beautiful week, and we may be together again next Saturday for our course, or next Tuesday for another lesson. So be it.